Mike, appreciate you making time for us, especially after the presser. How's it going?
Going good. I'm excited. Get to see some more football, although I saw some this past weekend.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple of interesting games to watch this weekend. There's even more interesting games coming up this next weekend. So let's see. As far as Arkansas is concerned, we got the depth chart. We do know, according to Pittman, Patrick Kudus does not expect to play. Marion Harris at left guard. Rashad Dubinion a little bit banged up. So I wonder if we're going to see him. Those are the things that stand out just from reading Dudley's summary of the press conference.
Yeah, Rodney Hill, I guess, may end up being the number 2. I think it's significant that Jaquindon Jackson is going to start because we didn't know. He'd been held out some, too, so that's good news. Andrew Armstrong, I guess, is still questionable at one of the receivers' positions, but they've got a lot of depth at that position. You know, I thought one of the most interesting things that Pittman said was when he opened up and talked about being excited to go play in Little Rock, and the players are always excited, and they don't look at it as kind of a chore. They look at it as something they're excited to play for, but then he said that doesn't have anything to do with the future of the game. And then later on, he talked a lot about this problem they've had lately where when they had the Jerry World game and a game that's played in Little Rock, you have 2 basically home games that aren't at home. And then I got a question on Ask Mike about what's going to happen to the Jerry World game because there's been some speculation that they would replace that with a non-conference game, might rotate it with some Big 12 teams, might play a Baylor or a Texas Tech there. And the word I got this morning from the athletic department is there are no immediate plans to replace that game. They're not saying they won't ever play there again, but there's not a plan to do it now. And it looks like to me their thinking is we got to play as many home games as possible. If it's a home game, it needs to be a home game. So I don't know. It could be after that 2025 Arkansas State game, you might not see Arkansas playing in Little Rock.
Hey, Mike. So is it Rodney Hill? That's the running back? That's a true freshman. Is there another true freshman that's going to get ample playing time besides him in week 1?
Well, we know that there's an in-state kid, and we know he's been looking good, and we know he's big. But you know, I think he's got to play. But Pittman didn't mention him. Well, I don't know.
The offensive line is one that we were kicking around too. You know, it's got to be so much better than last year. One of the guys who was expected to start, who was a starter for most of last season, Patrick Kudus. And now Marion Harris has an opportunity to lock this down. Like if he plays really well Thursday, and I can't imagine you're making a change based upon Kudus just being healthy because, you know, Harris, it looks like, is the backup left tackle according to the depth chart, and he's going to start at left guard. And I know Pittman has said, you know, he thinks they're about 8 deep on the offensive line, and it seems that Harris is a guy that they are really going to count on, and this is his opportunity to get a position and hold on to it.
Well, the most significant thing he said, and you got 5 starters in that old line, and he said right now Harris would not be number 5. He said, I don't know if he's 3 or 4. But in other words, he's solidly entrenched there. I think even if Kudus comes back, and I guess he's going to get an evaluation on his back coming up soon, but I think for right now he's lost that job. He'd have to play his way back into it. I mean, you got to see how somebody plays in a game. Pittman talked about that. He said, you got players that you watch them in practice, and then when they get in the game, he said one of 2 things is going to happen. Either their play is going to elevate or they're not going to be what you thought they were. So he's saying with a lot of these guys, we're anxious to see which direction they're going. Because, I mean, this is when you start getting movement among starters. Now, some people are entrenched. Now, he talked about rotating all these D linemen that they've got, and they do have a lot. And he said, yeah, we'll do some rotation. He said, Landis Jackson and Ted Ball, we're not rotating them. They're too valuable. So there are some guys that are going to keep their spot, but when you've got depth, that's one of the things that happens. coaches are evaluating, did you up your game in this from practice in this game, or did it go backwards a little bit? And that's how it starts to shuffle. I think some things are going to shuffle out in the secondary. And by the way, guys, this thing that UAPB's coach said about Arkansas in the back end being big but slow, and Pittman was asked about that, bulletin board material, and he very diplomatically said, we have a lot of respect for their coach and their coaching staff, and we'll leave it at that. But they cannot be happy with that statement, and I'm kind of trying to figure out why he said it. It's almost like waving a red flag. Maybe he really believes that. Maybe we'll find out that it's true. I mean, Pittman did say UAPB has a lot of speed, and he said they'll try to beat us deep. So we'll see if he knows what he's talking about.
Mike, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And some of these kids at practice, that when they get to the game, they elevate their play, or they kind of fold a little bit. Do you think that has a guy that might be like that? I don't know how his practice goes, or but it seems like he does elevate his game during a game. Is Ty Washington, who was surprisingly the third string tight end. He seems to be a guy when he gets to play. He shows up and makes plays, but I don't know, does that continue on in practice, or is that still a good battle with him and Gums?
Well, when Petrino was asked about this, when was that interview? It was last week. He mentioned Ty Washington. He said, look, this is a guy that was hurt in the spring, so I didn't get to see a lot of, and I knew nothing about him. And he said, I've been knocked out by what he's done, so I can't believe that he's not the two, unless something's happened in the last few days. Well, however they have this listed, if you just listen to what Petrino said, he kept being asked about Gums, and he kept talking about Washington. So we'll see.
You're talking about how the secondary may shake out. It's a really interesting group, and you got some young players that are on this depth chart. I mean, Selman Bridges, true freshman. Tevis Metcalf, true freshman. T.J. Metcalf, sophomore. Jalen Braxton as well. I mean, you got a couple of older guys that have come in from other programs, and Larry Worth and Danico Slaughter. But Hudson Clark is like really one of the lone guys in the secondary who's older, played his entire career at Arkansas. Marquise Robinson Cuddy, I know he's a senior, but came from South Alabama. Keon Stewart, he's been around for 5 or 6 years, but he played at TCU. So, looking at Hudson Clark, I mean, this is the elder statesman of the secondary.
Yeah, and what we've seen ourselves in what we've been able to see in these practices, and then combine that with some of the video of these scrimmages that the U of A has put out there, like there's a big play, they'll stick it on their website. So between all of that, I've seen enough to tell me that there's some real talent in that secondary. I mean, there have been a lot of picks. There have been a lot of passes knocked away that should have been caught. If there's a surprise to me, just the impression I have right now, that secondary doesn't just look to be improved. It looks to be much deeper than it was even last year. And I think that's where the surprise is going to be. And again, maybe UAPB's coach was talking about the safeties as opposed to the corners. I don't know. Most corners are going to be faster. Safeties are more bigger guys that tackle, but that's not my impression that this is a slow bunch of guys. They can certainly jump. I know that. You take a 6'1" kid and he plays like he's 6'6" with his jumping ability. I think that's going to be one of the pluses of this team. We'll have to wait and see. They're going to get tested. Guys, we saw SMU go up against Nevada, picked last in the Mountain West. And I saw a Nevada team that was a lot better than SMU thought they were going to be. That game was a battle till the very end. So this time of year, you can't just look at a team like UAPB and assume you're going to waltz all over them because you don't know enough about them. Pittman himself admitted they had so many transfer in through the portal that there's a big unknown there, that there's going to be a bunch of guys on the field that they have not seen playing for UAPB. Now, they may go look at them, from other games where they were with other teams, and that makes the prep a little bit difficult when you have to do that.
Hey, Mike, so this first game coming up Thursday, give me something you want to see. Give me something out of the offense and the defense that you hope to see.
Well, I want to see Taylen Green handle a pass rush. And Pittman said that they didn't do that last year a lot. He expects more of it. But, yeah, I want to see what he does under pressure. So that would be with the offense. With the defense, I want to see what the linebackers do. You may see UAPB try to throw in that area underneath the secondary, underneath the safeties, and behind the linebackers. So I want to see what kind of pass defense. I think they'll run support. Arkansas is strong enough up front. I don't worry about that. But I want to see how they handle those passes in that kind of a no-man land in front of the secondary, but behind the linebackers.
Mike, I think Coach Pittman has one more media availability before the season starts. There's Sam Pittman Live tomorrow. I think the SEC teleconference is still scheduled for Wednesday morning. So, I mean, I guess you could call those two availabilities. They've said all the right things, in terms of the who they brought out of the portal, who they added after the spring portal opened up. They talk a lot about chemistry and real leadership. I think they talk about a lot of that leadership coming from guys who weren't on this team last year. And the idea, too, and it's one of the first things that Sam said when practice started publicly, that part of why they feel good about this group is who's not with this group that was there last year. They've said all the right things. And I think we thought they looked optimistic going into last season. That was proven otherwise. There's something in the way they're talking about this team that makes me feel that they truly do believe that they actually have something, not like special 10 wins, 11 wins, but something that will turn the program around in a positive way.
Well, absolutely. I think the biggest thing in that respect is they know you don't have these divisions on the team. You don't have these little factions where these guys are mad at that guy. This guy over here is mad because he's not getting enough NIL money. Why is this offensive coordinator running all these weird plays that the quarterback doesn't like? All that stuff. That's all out the window. So that's the positive part of it. But I still think Sam Pittman understands the gravity of this situation. He was asked about closing practice completely during season, and why are you doing that? And he pretty much admitted, he said, we know this is a critical year for us, and we just can't have any distractions. We've got to have, when we're out there preparing for a game, we got to just have it be our family. And I think maybe next year, if they have a good season, you may see that relaxed a little bit. But I see that as a move by him to acknowledge that they've got to keep that unity. They can't have any distractions. And he admitted, he said, you guys may still find out what goes on at practice, but you won't find out through us.
Mike, you brought it up the first week of games. How are you feeling right now if you're Mike Norvell in Florida State after that week 1 loss?
Well, here's the way I look at that. Everybody's criticizing them. Everybody's criticizing their quarterback. Everybody's saying their season is over. I don't think that. I think what happened is what happens a lot of times these first games. I think Georgia Tech was undervalued by a lot of people, including me. I didn't know enough about them. After watching that game, I don't think enough people are talking about how good Georgia Tech's defense was.
Those guys
tough,
yeah.
They were good. It wasn't just the quarterback went out there and he had an awful day. Those guys came after him. They were going after passes. If I'm a Georgia Tech fan, I'm excited right now. And in a small way, I guess I was sitting there thinking, I hope this is what happens with Arkansas when they play, in Oklahoma State. Because once you play well, then the cat's going to be out of the bag. Then they're going to know this team is better than we thought it was. But that first big game you play where you're being disrespected, that's where you can step up and say, hey, we're not who you think we are. This is what we are. So I was watching that game a little bit and thinking, I hope Arkansas assumes this Georgia Tech role.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.